Martin Campbell. We're good friends. We did GoldenEye together. And we've remained friends ever since. And he said, I've got this movie, Jackie Chan, The Foreigner. I read the script. Loved the script. Loved Jackie Chan. And that was it. It was as simple as that, really.
Martin Campbell, director of two of the most beloved, acclaimed Bond films of all time, and high-volume enthusiast.
Action! 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 Go, 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 go! God almighty.
Campbell has something of a legendary status in the 007 fandom, having helmed both GoldenEye and Casino Royale, and thus being highly responsible for the successful launching of not one, but two new James Bonds. He frequently gets cited in desired director lists for future Bond films too, despite not being as high-profile a name in more general film fan circles as your Christopher Nolan or your Denis Villeneuve's. Campbell has an impressive filmography outside of Bond too, with, The Mask of Zorro, The Legend of Zorro, Vertical Limits, The Edge of Darkness. But yes, Green Lantern happened, and sadly Campbell's ability to kickstart new eras of Bond did not translate to kicking off a new DC superhero universe. The film was poorly reviewed, it disappointed at the box office, and mere mention of it these days has become something of a punchline amongst film fans. For what it's worth, I haven't revisited that film since its initial release, though I would like to see it again someday, but I don't think it's unfair to say that Campbell's career went into a somewhat different place due to the reaction to that film. After directing a handful of TV projects, The Foreigner was Campbell's first feature film in 6 years, and what better way to return to cinemas than with two huge profile action movie stars sharing top billing, Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. I say cinemas, here in the UK the film was released immediately on Netflix, but it was a modest box office success from the theatrical releases that it had elsewhere, and this is a relatively low budget action film. It apparently cost $35 million to make, and I think that shows. I mean, there is a limit to how big the action can get, and I'd probably hesitate from even identifying this as an action film, to be perfectly honest. It's really more of a political thriller with the occasional little burst of action throughout. Anyway, in terms of the story, we have Kwan, played by Jackie Chan, a London-based restaurant owner who experiences a great tragedy in a bombing in the opening minutes of the film and spends the rest of the running time trying to hunt down who was ultimately responsible for his tragic loss. The trail leads him to Pierce Brosnan's Liam Hennessy, an Irish politician clearly modelled on real-life figure Gerry Adams. Responsibility for the blast is claimed by an organisation dubbing themselves the Authentic IRA, that's the Irish Republican Army, and because of Hennessy's links with the former IRA, Kwan believes that he will ultimately be able to give him the names of those responsible for the bombing that we see at the start of the film. Hennessy claims to have no idea who the perpetrators are, but Kwan does not take no for an answer and begins something of a campaign of intimidation against Hennessy, who finds himself under pressure from multiple angles to find out who was behind the attack, and there are some twists and turns in the story, of course, as it plays out, but I did really enjoy how much the film played with just, questioning how much Brosnan's character knows or doesn't know. In some scenes, I found him quite sympathetic, because he's got this revenge-driven father, blowing up his shed, and then he's got his superiors in Parliament breathing down his neck about this thing, and he says that he doesn't know anything about it, and I think that the frustration of that whole situation for him is really well conveyed, as well as the suspense and the mystery from the audience perspective of okay, well, how much does he know, and is he being truthful in these moments or not? Indeed, the political side of the story is perhaps the thing that I gravitated to the most, and it's certainly what separates the film, well, for me anyway, from a bunch of other low to mid-budget revenge action thriller movies, and I mean, this was clearly something on the filmmakers' minds too.
Well, I think that's one of the aspects of the movie which is so interesting, is that normally in a thriller like this, say you take Taken, for example, it's very simple. His daughter is kidnapped. He then goes and shoots 350 people in order to get his daughter back. And terrific it was. But there's a whole kind of political aspect to this, which has to do with the IRA, the fact that Hennessy, that's Pierce Brosnan, was at one time connected with it, that Hennessy was part of the peace process, that within his own camp, he has friends, acquaintances, and even enemies, right? Who it turns out, of course, the people he thought were his friends are indeed perhaps his enemies. So there is a whole, if you will, subplot that goes on, which has to do with that IRA story.
And yeah, how many times in these kinds of films is that the catalyst for the action? Oh no, you have kidnapped, maimed, murdered my family member, so now I'm out for revenge. How that element of the story is integrated with the Irish political turmoil really gives this one more of a unique angle than most that fall into this same category, though as a result, I must say that Jackie Chan's character feels almost like a supporting player in some parts of the film. Now, this is obviously a Jackie Chan film over a Pierce Brosnan film. I mean, Jackie Chan is one of the producers, and from what I've read and heard in interviews, he was actually very instrumental in getting this movie made. He was on board before either Campbell or Brosnan, and I certainly don't mean to diminish Chan's contribution to the film at all. I think he's actually really great in it, but I do feel like Brosnan steals the show a bit by virtue of having a role and story involving a good deal more complexity. It did occur to me watching this, though, that perhaps shamefully, I don't think I've ever actually seen Jackie Chan in a more serious, dramatic role like what he's playing here. I do mainly know him from Hollywood action comedies, and here he's playing a distraught father, owner of a kind of run-down-looking restaurant, and I think he's really great in this part. He has a lot of emotion to play up top in the first few scenes, and how his character is out looking for answers and becomes so tunnel-visioned about his self-imposed mission. I thought he was really wonderful. Dare I say I was even moved by a good deal of his scenes in the first act. And of course, this is Jackie Chan still. He has a good few fight scenes and such, and again, just like brilliant stuff all round. Despite the wider political ramifications of the story and where the stakes escalate to, which is pretty big, things are still somewhat restricted to the modest budget. Though I do always get a bit of a kick about, how films of this size are able to create adrenalizing action beats without all of the money in the world at their disposal. The Foreigner utilizes that same technique that I've seen in a few mid-budget action thriller films, Atomic Blonde, Rhythm Section, and so on, where scale is substituted for tight, concise, expertly choreographed fight sequences that technically take place on a smaller scale, but still pack a serious punch. Obviously, when you have martial arts megastar Jackie Chan in the lead role, you know that you're in for something great, but it does actually take a good long while for his character's abilities to become clear, and for the first 30 minutes or so, I was seriously wondering, is there even going to be an action component to this? Or is it gonna be just a political thriller in much the same vein as, well, funnily enough, another film where Brosnan plays a political figure, the Ghostwriter. But yeah, if Brosnan was basically playing Tony Blair in the Ghostwriter, here he's playing Jerry Adams. He takes on a Northern Irish accent for the role, and he looks very different from his usual dashing self. Much like Chan, dramatically speaking, Brosnan has a lot to work with here. He has a lot of moral grayness to convey, and I like a lot of the intrigue that comes out of his storyline. There are a variety of players, including his wife, staff, and political allies, and I think he does brilliantly in this role. I would go so far as to say that this is one of the best performances I've ever seen the man give. I was surprised how understated it was, particularly given that, Brosnan can be accused of perhaps overacting on occasion. But here I thought he was really pitch perfect throughout. This is a total aside, but I did love in some of the behind-the-scenes interviews for the film, Brosnan sounds so, upset by the fact that he never got to hang out with Jackie Chan during filming.
We were supposed to have dinners at the beginning of the movie, but the schedule was pretty tight, and dinners were organized, 2 were, and 2 fell apart, and then once the curtain goes up and you start filming, well, that's it. Your time's not your own, really. And when he wasn't working, he headed back to China to do another movie. So we never really got to sit and have a glass of wine, break bread, and shoot the breeze. But hopefully now with the film coming out and the promotion for the film, we shall get together. But no, I really have a lot of time for Mr. Chan. Just great admiration. I'm really proud to have worked with him. I love saying I'm working with Jackie Chan. It always puts a smile on people's faces. And when we were on set, I was in the makeup chair for a while. He'd be in the makeup chair for a while, bruises and prosthetics. And then once you get on set, I don't talk much to anyone, really. I just keep my own counsel and focus on the work at hand. So, every now and then there would be a knock on my door and the door would fly open and throw me in Chinese Twinkies. I don't know why. He's trying to fatten me up, I guess. But, yes. What else? Well, he was sitting in the makeup trailer one day and he was showing me recordings of his singing. He was very proud of his singing. And so am I, you know. I almost showed him Mamma Mia, but I thought, no, let's leave sleeping dogs lie.
As to be expected, Martin Campbell provides wonderful, clear, inventive, and never intrusive direction. I love this man's style so much. There's such an economy to how he tells a story visually that I just love in that sort of Hitchcockian way. He very rarely does anything even remotely pretentious or showy. His films don't trip over themselves to be like, hey, director over here, have you noticed the directing I'm doing? What do you think of the directing? I'm the director directing right now. And I'm very happy that this film seems to have been his rebound, really, from The Green Lantern, and as of recording, he's directed a couple more action thrillers since. Despite all my praisings of the film so far, I do have to admit that it is not anywhere near the level of Campbell's 2 Bond films. Of course, it's very cool knowing that Campbell and Brosnan reunited for another movie, but I don't think that this is going to make for the most natural of double bills with GoldenEye anytime soon. While I think all of the various elements are operating at a very good level, The Foreigner is not about to become an action classic or even a cult classic anytime soon, I don't think. Though, nor is it necessarily like sleepy dad on the sofa fodder either. I mean, I had a great time with The Foreigner. I thought it was a very involving political thriller with action revenge elements that was certainly elevated by great direction and performances. I definitely recommend sticking this in your Netflix queue or grabbing the Blu-ray depending on where in the world you'll be seeking this out. I mean, it is a really solid, fun, and engaging film, and for Bond fans, there's the extra appreciative element of seeing a reuniting of a gold standard Bond director with the star he launched into orbit. Do let me know your thoughts on The Foreigner in the comment section below, and also below there are links to a variety of my social media pages. There is the subscribe button and the Mrs. Bell notification button, so be sure to click both of those if you want to stay up to date on future video uploads. And with all that being said, and until next time, Brosnan Campbell fans, so long for now.